have been on a flight and lost your luggage? Okay? Great. Okay. How many of you have lost your luggage when it was a carry-on? It happened today. As far as I know, my bag is somewhere between here and Cancun. So, and they wouldn't send me to get my bag. So, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this instead. So, everybody, welcome. Thank you guys for being here. My name is Mike Rosenberg. I'm a technical consultant for transfer with the Gardner Institute for Excellence in Undergraduate Education. I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Betsy Griffin, who is one of the folks you saw a few minutes ago. It's interesting hearing the opening speaker because there's a lot of interrelation between what we're going to be talking about here today and what they were mentioning there, and that will all become very clear in a few moments. But while I was putting this, presentation together, while we were doing this, the basis of this presentation is an environmental scan of transfer, a look at sort of what's going on in transfer across the country at the moment, various things. And one of the reasons that what brought this into my head was it made me think about the first job that I had that was related to transfer, which was at a community college in Northern Kentucky. I was their first transfer group. They didn't have one before. They hired the first one. It was me. And I remember I was sitting in the president's office, first day of work. And he looks at me and he says, Mike, I need you to fix transfer. I said, okay, sure, no problem. How would you like me to do that? And he said, Mike, that's why I'm paying. So, all right, so what do I do? You get this, so I'm in this position, I'm trying to create something out of whole cloth. So what do? You try to do a little research. You figure out what's going on. You figure out what other people have done. Because that is what we do in student affairs, academic advising. I don't care where we borrow from each other. We steal from each other when we're not looking, and then try to cite afterwards. We do these kind of things because we are a community of folks who we like to share, because the stuff that works, we like to make sure it works everywhere. And the hope is that the stuff that we're going to be presenting here, a lot of it is going to probably sound somewhat familiar. My hope, though, is that when you leave here, you're going to have a few things that you can take with you, places that you can look, ideas that you may have, places that you can pick out some practices, promising practices along the way, that you might be able to take back to your place. And this is not, if you are looking for specific answers, like here is the magic bean to grow the transfer beanstalk, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do that probably in the next hour. But what I hope I'll be able to do is to give you some ideas along the way. Anyway, our environmental scans. We start with this environmental scan. What's the environmental scan? Sort of a 30,000-foot view of transfer. And it came from a grant that we got with the Gates Foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, looking at improving transfer outcomes, looking at digital learning, looking at gateway courses, a number of things like that, a lot of it to get them information about who is doing what. Because when the Gates Foundation asks you, hey, where should we be sending money? You go, let's see what people say. What's going to be the most helpful? And the genesis of this was actually what they were talking about in the opening session. Tracking transfer, the research report that just came out of the Community College Research Center, Gardner Institute, National Student Clearinghouse. They put that all together. And again, you heard those numbers in there. That research report yielded, as you probably also heard, the transfer playbook. The transfer playbook, which if you are interested in the transfer playbook, and I think it is a very interesting policy document, the next concurrent session will have a session about the transfer playbook. So if you want to hear more about that, that is somewhere that you can go. The transfer playbook, when they were with the advisory board putting that together, that is where that is where the Gardner Institute got involved. We were enlisted to assist with helping them implement the playbook at various places. There are going to be some workshops coming down the line. but but that's how we got plugged into them. And as part of that, they asked us to do this environmental scan transfer and some other areas. We are trying to look at what's out there, what are people doing, because we want Gates to know what's out there, what's working, what might not be working, where we can improve things, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I am not going to be, and you guys you're lucky, I'm not going to be running through the whole thing. This is turning into a fairly large, it's a fairly large document, but I've just tried to pull out things that I thought you guys would find most helpful as practitioners in this field working on this kind of stuff. So I'm going to be sharing the highlights from the transfer portion. So, I get this job. I'm supposed to fix transfer. What do I do first? First thing I do is I pick up the phone. And I start calling people who are doing the kind of work that I'm doing around, in my case, around saving time. So as part of the scan, one of the things that we wanted to do was get the words and the actions of folks who are in the field. And we started it out by talking to transfer professionals, talking to people that are working in the field. And the first part was an online discussion. We had 16 colleges, some 2 years, some 4 year, some urban, some rural. We had a really nice, a nice broad set of enrollment and whatnot, and talked to them about this stuff. Asked them what's working, what's getting in the way. Again, some of the things that you might have heard a few minutes ago. If you were going to reshuffle resources, where would you put them? And what's the biggest need? If there were going to be pennies from heaven coming in, where would this money go? So we asked folks who do what we do about this stuff. And, well, here's what we said. Here's what they say. And what I did was we compiled responses. We had 80, 90 responses to some of these questions. Did some thematic analysis, did some coding, tried to get some, again, there's a lot of specific stuff. There's really neat, institutionally specific stuff happening out there as far as initiatives. But rather than going through all of them, I tried to group them together, we tried to group them together in some general categories of what's working. And the second part, and that's the second part to this, actually starts tomorrow. We're going to keep collecting this information. Tomorrow at 11:15 in Salon I. If you guys are not committed to something already, we are having a focus group here at NISTS to try to get more information, more stuff to pass along to Gates. So if you are here, if you are interested in doing something like that, please join us tomorrow. If you cannot join us, or if focus groups are not your thing, and you would rather do stuff, if you want to do stuff on your own, we have a lot of the questions that we're going to be asking in the focus group. If you don't mind jotting this down, it's a survey. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes to go through the whole thing so we can get some more data. This is it, tinyurl.com/jngi-survey. Type that in, take you right to it. Again, if you have a few minutes in between sessions, or if you just kind of hang out in the room tonight, we're going to leave this open for a while. So please take that. We'd love to hear what you have to say so that you can add your voices to this data, these data. So here's what folks say are working in general. Things that transfer practitioners feel move the needle. This is the big one. Staffing, having someone who you can point to and say, this is the transfer person, or these are the transfer people, and this is where you go. Having an identifiable space of some kind, even if it's somebody's office, having an identifiable space is important. Enhanced orientation and advising, making sure that transfer students go through some kind of orientation, don't just turn loose. And advising, the two-year schools are really proud of the fact that they can give. What I found was two-year schools were really kind of proud of the fact that they could say, all right, if you want to go to X, Y, or Z institution, we can get you in the right general vicinity of a course map, even if we haven't had anybody from there talking to us. So the more you can do, if you are at a four-year school, and there is anything that you can do to help out folks at community colleges in designing advising tools, please do it. Again, and that feeds right into articulations, partnerships, and whatnot. Again, none of the curriculum alignment, none of this stuff is isn't anything new under the sun. Campus culture, especially faculty and administrative leadership. Everybody banging on the transfer drum together, acknowledging that it is important, acknowledging that transfer students exist, and that they're there, and that they are in numbers, and that they have their own needs. Making sure that you have a vibrant campus culture surrounding transfer is important. Learning communities, seminars that involve some kind of career advising. I know that there was, I saw when they were talking there about, there is that back and forth between career advising, how to track people into careers versus meta majors. Or I think that doing general, I think that career interest stuff, helping a lot of times, you just don't know what you don't know. Helping students at least get on a, if not on an exact path, at least pointed in a direction where they feel like, okay, I'm pursuing something that is meaningful to me, whatever that meaningful is. Other things that works, pre-admission credit evaluation. Pre-admission credit evaluation is a big thing. Not having to wait until you've been applied and accepted. Intentional external recruiting of 4-year schools, of 2-year schools, of transfer students, so it's not just part of an admissions function. Peer and faculty mentoring came up a fair bit, as did student organizations, whether it's something like Tau Sigma or Phi Theta Kappa, or I remember when I was telling a friend of mine about this just a few minutes ago. When I went to graduate school at the University of Arizona, they had an adult and transfer student center on their campus, and they had a student organization, and they had a roommate finder service. Which moving halfway across the country, I'd never lived in Arizona before. I found my roommate through the student organization So these are the kind of things that folks say, again, general thematic things that have worked on their campuses. Are there things that are not reflected here that you find that work on your own campuses, back home? Back home.
Nothing's working.
Nothing's working. Okay. Or if it's reflected, that's good. I like it. Then we're on the right track. Yes.
I was gonna say marketing just for transfers instead of just like all inclusive, including,
specific marketing for transfer students.
Yeah.
Yes. And making it and marketing and making stuff easy to find too. I would certainly do that. Other stuff? Yeah.
Yes, to piggyback off of that, we're currently integrating guidebook into our transfer sessions for orientation. We're allowing it easier for them to be able to look through, say, their phones instead of going to, I work at University of South Florida, our University of South Florida app. We also implement guidebook on the side of that. So we're currently trying to work that and implement that into the system as well. And it seems to be working in a success as far as the testing stage is going. So.
Nice. Yeah, they're doing a lot of the electronic integration is great. Yes?
A recent thing, we're doing from a 2-year college, and our biggest feeder school has a very competitive business entrance program. And we just recently had their dean and several of their faculty come over to talk about how can we help our students actually get into their business program. And in addition to the curriculum alignment, some of their faculty are going to come teach a guest class. And I bring students from our school specifically there to do a tour. They sit at the board table in the building, and it's really kind of not only letting them know what it takes to get in, but I think it's very aspirational for them and helps with the transition when they actually get there.
Just a couple more. I'll come back to you, Andrew.
You talked about having the 4-year schools come and train or teach or talk to the 2-year schools. We actually do what are called, I'm from a 2-year school, and our 4-year partners, our top 3 feeders, actually come and do lunch and learns for all of our advisors and talk to us about changes in their programs, and they ask us what programs we would like presented, and then they bring faculty from those programs as well.
Okay. Yes.
My question was if you could tease out orientation, because I know it's important, but in research I've done, it was the one thing universally the students complained about.
Complained about.
So what were the qualities from these successful schools, were the elements in that orientation?
That would be a really good, that would be a good question, and I hadn't gotten to that in my analysis. I'll be very honest about that. So I'll look at that. That's a very good question. That is a really good, because and I know transfer students a lot, and they're just like one more thing to do, but
well, it's required, it's costly, and they feel like a lot of the information is not information that they're seeking.
I think that that's something that making it meaningful is very important. Targeting it, making it. Did you have anything, Andrew? Or you can pass on it.
I was just going to say, money always works. We have a scholarship for transfer students. So if they complete their associate degree, come in, receive a certain GPAs, and we offer a scholarship like we do freshman.
Good. All right. Stuff that's getting in the way. Here's what folks are saying was getting in the way. Again, nothing new. Acceptance of transfer credit, transfer policies. This will count. Sure, we'll transfer this in, but a department might say we don't want this, or something along those lines. That can be a barrier. Money is huge. Financial aid cycles can get off. Scholarships, while UC does have a lot of transfer scholarships, a lot of schools don't offer a lot of transfer scholarship money. But then there's things like outstanding balances. Like if you've gone to a school before and you owe money, they won't release a transcript. That stops your admissions process. Application and confirmation fees, where you can't, if they can't be deferred and rolled into the tuition, where somebody's got to pay first and last month's rent just to apply to the college. That gets in the way for a lot. I know a lot of the students that I work with, that got in the way of them trying to apply, especially if they wanted to apply to more than one place. They had options. Transfer policies, a lot of that kind of stuff. We've mentioned that as practitioners. Registration times, academic calendar, and it works. There's a couple of different ways that works too. Is that there's transfer policies at the institution, and transfer students also think that transfer policies or administrative policies are the same at every school, and having to learn that things are different and relearn what is and what isn't and what doesn't work. Issues with advising, making decisions late, not understanding what time the degree is all about, or being plugged into those sort of things. That can be that gets in the way. A lot of the resources on campuses being first-year centric. And focused on first-year students and student involvement, not having opportunities for students to get involved early on as when they're coming on campus as transfer students. Academic rigor and pace. I don't mean this in that students are incapable of doing the work. That's not what this refers to. It's more that I know the population I worked with, about 2/3 of them were part-time students. About 2/3 on this two-year campus were part-time students. And then they transfer into programs where the norm, the curriculum is set up. And sometimes you just can't avoid it. If you're going into an engineering program, you're going to be taking classes, labs, it can be logistically difficult, and the students may not realize that before they get into that circumstance. So rigor and pace, either not knowing or institutions not communicating the value of not transferring before you get a degree. What's the carrot for students getting that degree? I know that there's a lot of good work in retroactive degree certification or reverse transfer or whatever you want to call it, but that is not a panacea. It doesn't solve all the problems. It doesn't solve all the problems. But students, that's something that we got to do a better job with, is making sure that they know that. And you're talking about completion also, especially for community colleges and especially in this day and age when everything surrounds performance-based budgeting, completion is almost always one of the metrics. Yeah?
The value of the associate's degree is such a big thing. I work at a four-year public institution in New Jersey. We have a New Jersey statewide initiative, transfer initiative, where if you get an associate in art or an associate in science degree, you are granted what we call blind credit, meaning that all the credits are going to transfer and you're basically waived of your general education. many students don't know the difference coming from 2 years, whether what the difference between associate in science and associate in applied science, and they find out that they have an associate in applied science and that they're not eligible for this. They find it very difficult.
Yes.
So the education, I think, to tell them what those actually stand for.
And there are a lot of students that don't know the difference. Business is a big thing for that. You get yourself an AAS in accounting, and you think you can jump into a program that's going to lead you towards being able to then become a CPA, and you go, wait a minute, I got to take financial accounting again. You know, that was one I saw a lot. And this is the last one. These lingering perceptions from folks who make policy that transfer students aren't academically capable, that they're going to hurt the graduation rate, blah, blah, they don't want to be involved. I still remember the first time I worked with a four-year school on trying to set up a transfer partnership, and they were like, well, if we do this, it's just going to kill our freshman numbers. Well, I said, give me 2 years. And well, we all know how that movie ended. It worked out. It worked out good. So yeah, these are the main things. These are the things that folks identify. What else? Other barriers that you guys have experienced or that you think get in the way? Yes.
Gateway courses. So we need those courses and completing them in order to be admitted to a four-year institution.
Gateway courses and developmental courses on the front end too. Yes.
Along the same line is like foreign language requirements. So like, I'm at a four-year institution where you have to have 3 semesters, but the community college only offers 2 semesters. So when they come to our institution for their third, they don't do well because they weren't prepared for that, for like a totally different way of teaching or totally different book and things like that. So just making sure that those courses that build on each other have some continuity.
And that the whole notion of being admitted to the university versus being admitted to the major. That there's that second process. Yeah.
You had another about that idea of alignment is just paramount, and I think it also relates to the value of the AA, AS, and AAS degrees. Because if they're not, if the requirements are extraneous for an associate's degree, my husband happens to be in the situation where there are 2 extra classes he would have to take to get an associate's degree, but what he's really getting is a bachelor's degree, what he's aiming for. He's taking classes one at a time. He's not incentivized to get that associate's degree. Right. So that alignment, I think, is really important. But I also think it kind of goes back to also transparency, because even where you have credit maps or pathways laid out, they're not always very transparent, easy to find, or they don't have all of the information, so like they'll lack prerequisite sequencing or something like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. The creation of tools is a big help. Here and then here.
I come from a four-year institution in New York State, and we accept any and all transfer credit. And so sometimes, a lot of times, students come in with over 8 transfer credit hours or over 70 transfer credit hours, and then they're losing their TAP, or they're losing financial aid and things like that. And then that can be really difficult to them, and they can afford it or stay. And we also have a very strong, based general education program that is very freshman focused. It's not transfer friendly. And so now, which they thought was going to take only 4 semesters, is now moving into 6 just because of the gen ed requirements. So that can be really difficult for us at our institution.
What razor do you use?
One of the common issues that I see, it has to do with credit, but I think oftentimes students are advised to go to community college to save money, get some general education courses out of the way, and they don't realize that I'm at a 4-year university, that they don't realize that when they get there, if they didn't have a plan from the beginning, that can be detrimental, and they're not going to do a 2 and 2, or even a 2 and 3. Maybe they have to start over virtually from the beginning, depending on what degree plan.
And 1 or 2 more. Sure.
So we're finding for our STEM majors, one of the problems is that at the community college, they can take gen ed classes and not very many science classes. The only thing they have left to take are labs, hard science classes, and they're already going to get a grade bump, and they're just dying because that's all they can take.
Sometimes even getting those courses offered can be a challenge. And there's one more, yeah.
And I think kind of echoing just the
exploratory process that these students might still be in, even though they have numerous credits and they have been making decisions years ago or a long time ago, or they may be reevaluating those, especially if they're not admitted into some of their major of choice. At our institution, we don't have a process for undecided transfer students. They do have to choose a major when they come in, so just really recognizing that they may still need that support.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. When we looked at, and then we got to talking about money. And as we got to looking at where would you want to reallocate resources versus where would you want grant resources, it all just kind of, it was all sort of the same. So in combining those things where people want their money, of course you want more people. You want more people, you want more staff, you want more stuff, and it's great. Where they would want things, central credit evaluation. Central credit evaluation, a better credit evaluation systems, and block credit transfers when available. Being able to beef up orientations, again, as we talked about, and early outreach. Early transfer outreach going beyond even incoming freshman students. Talking to it even at the high school level about this is what being a transfer student is like, because transfer is the norm. You should have in your head, this is what it is going to be like. This is what it's potentially going to be like. And that's where, and I'll touch on that just in a little bit. Professional development, especially for leadership, so that people know what the facts are about transfer, was on the wish list. Better accessibility, transfer information. Again, just because you have stuff out on a website somewhere, it doesn't mean that people can find it and use it. And that's both internally and externally. I think I see a lot of, I've seen both sides. I've seen websites that are created largely for the use of the employees of an institution. And so the students, it's too dense for the students, or it's stuff that's on the other end of the spectrum where it's so student focused that if you're an advisor, you can't find anything. So there are those, there's that kind of stuff as well. Other places they want, improving pathways and partnerships, that's very big. Reverse transfer bridge programs, dual enrollment programs, whether with high school, or consortia where you can take classes at other colleges. I think those are huge opportunities for community colleges, for transfer students. More scholarships and financial aid, of course. Transfer research and assessment, so we actually have some data to give to people, and it is out there, and it is out there if you know where to look. Again, something like that. And technology solutions, things like improved degree audits and student tracking, predictive analytics, that sort of stuff. That's where they would. That's what folks said they would like to see institutions in general spend the money. You got a wish list? You have wish lists? What you put on the wish list? Yes.
A big project we're working on is credit for prior learning. Michigan has a huge population of some college, no degree adults, and those students need different solutions.
Yes.
And we need to be able to, especially for military connected students, we need to be able to give them credit for the competencies that they've earned in their real life experience.
PLA is a big deal, and it's going to be a bigger deal. So anything you can, if you think about prior learning assessment, if you figure, find out who's doing it on your campus. Where is that housed? Who's in charge of that sort of stuff? Other stuff? Yeah.
In addition to improving pathways, we're looking at our outreach at the community colleges, so not just admissions, but what colleges and schools are going out, when they're going out, and how we can streamline / maybe piggyback on another school and give them information if we can staff that outreach, but really trying to bring that all together.
Yeah.
Childcare.
Childcare, especially for adult students. Yes, that is a big thing, especially if you want to try to get students to go to school full time. Yeah.
Student organizations, realizing that there's a need for it before there's a need for it.
Yes, there is.
Programming for transfer students once they arrive on campus.
Programming for transfer students once they arrive on campus. Great. Yes.
I heard someone mention child care, but what I'm finding is that elder care and family care, parent care. I have a lot of students who are responsible for their parents who have health care challenges.
Yes. That's very true. Thank you very much. Again, these are great. I really appreciate you giving these ideas, because this is all stuff that this is all good information that we can pass along. plan to pass along. So, I talked to people, I got this job, I talked to some folks. I want to see, so what do? You look also at organizations who are working with transfer. Who is working with, who's doing stuff with transfer these days? What professional organizations can you find? There are obvious ones. There are obvious ones, because we all are sort of in the, that we touch student affairs in that milieu. But, obviously, here we are sitting here. And many of you were across, and I think probably some of you were across town, maybe, at the conference with the National Resource Center for FIU and Institutes in Transition. That's enough. Those two, again, are the ones that the first that pops people find. ACPA and NASPA, the big student affairs ones, more so with ACPA and what I have seen. They have a lot more stuff with transfer focus that I've seen. NASPA maybe doing more stuff, and ACPA really didn't have that. Admission stuff, and this is where I was talking, when you're talking about outreach, we're talking about getting to students early. I saw NACAC, they're presenting here, they're out here I know they're doing a lot of stuff. ACRO with admissions and registrars. You've got NACADA, of course, advising. NODA for some ideas for orientation and other retention stuff. And also, what I find is many of these groups have regionals. And that's a great place. If there are those regional meetings that are close to you and that usually don't cost that much, so you can usually find a way to get there, great opportunity to network, great opportunity to present to an audience other than your peers, and making sure that other parts of the institution know what it is that you do is really important. Yeah.
I say to that. Mm-hmm. I do a lot for the community college.
But no, I got it. Oh, no, that's great, but no. AACC is great, but American Association of Community Colleges. I'm gonna come back to them. But in addition to the student affairs-y folks, there are some other organizations that you might want to have in the back of your head. That where you look at, whether you're looking at their organization, looking at their website, looking at their resources, a lot of times you can find stuff. We all say data. Talk to the people who find the data. Association for Institutional Research, AIR, great group there. Specific advising areas, like the National Association of Advisors for Health Professions. If you're doing STEM stuff, you're doing medical stuff, those are the people who are advised to talk to them about, how transfer students fit in. Career advising, however we're going to talk about it, is going to be a bigger and bigger thing. NACE is career National Association of College Employees. NAID for developmental education. If you want information about developmental education, that's a good spot. NASAP, National Association of Student Affairs Professionals. If you are doing work with historically black colleges and universities, that is a group you need to know. And I think, I'm trying to remember, they've got a great, their slogan is "Work is love made visible." So I think that's right. I saw that. I thought that was a killer. Financial aid, getting to know financial aid folks. That's a big one. And then if you want to talk to the big wigs, some of the big wigs, you got NASH, National Association of System Heads, and SHIO for State Higher Education Executive Officers. Those aren't clubs I'm in. But they listen and they have confidence and they do stuff, and they are well worth knowing how they're thinking. I think especially if you're trying to make dents at the top, you got to know the circles in which they move. So that's some folks that you can talk to. Yeah.
What about the organization for boards of trustees or boards of regents?
Absolutely. I didn't, and the list goes on. I didn't put them all on there. Are there other organizations, other stuff you guys are affiliated with? You might be, yeah.
Achieving the Dream.
Achieving the Dream. They're coming up. Yeah, Achieving the Dream is a big one. Yes.
I'm part of a small professional development organization focused on transfer from Philadelphia region. TAAC.
TAAC.
Yes, and we actually have a conference that we're putting together in May, so look it up.
I I will. I guarantee it. Yes.
Thanks for plugging our work. I'm also part of a regional collaborative called the Multi-State Collaborative on Military Credit. And several of us are presenting tomorrow on some of our work, so if people are looking for help with credit for prior learning for military-connected students, come see us in the session, or we have a great website that has a lot of archived webinars and other resources that are available to you.
Very, very good. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, data. So you come up with an idea. You're putting together your center. You're coming up with a good idea. How do you justify what it is you're doing? How is you can justify what it is you're doing? You need numbers. You need policy. You want to show that you're not just throwing. You want to tell the president you're not just throwing spaghetti against the wall. You want to know where you can find stuff, where you can find numbers, where you can find practice, you can find stuff that has been tested. So here are some places, and obviously you can look at your own campus, but these are some places, again, you'll have heard of a bunch of, you've heard of some of these, but some places that you can look to find information. So where are these things? College Portrait is what used to be called the Voluntary System of Accountability, which has lots of there's numbers on demographics and cost, diversity, a lot of that information. If you're trying to do apples to apples comparisons, that's a good place to look to see how institutions compare. The Completion Arch is a data aggregation site, pulls from a lot of different areas. Transfer is one of the areas it goes on. You heard these folks talked up in the last session, the CCRC, the Community College Resource Center from Columbia University. Before I started on this project, and before I heard about the transfer playbook, when I was doing practitioner work, I didn't even know these folks were out there. And this is I can't tell you how much good stuff you can pull out of that. And the Institute for Higher Ed Policy, they do tons of transfer-related process. Things like Project Win-Win, Pathways to College, that kind of stuff. Institute for Higher Ed Policy, another really useful site. At least for now, the National Center for Education Statistics, that's the big boy with iPads. You know, you talk about iPads data, that's what that is. And National Post-Secondary Education Cooperative Research Center. They will be able, at least for now, it is stacked with actual, not alternative facts, as far as I know. The National Student Clearinghouse, we know the clearinghouse. Everybody talk. Anyway, if you're in transfer, you can't not know the clearinghouse. And this is an interesting one. The Pathways to College Network. I know most of us that work. If you work on a campus, generally you have access to university libraries and databases and things like that. If for some reason you don't, or if you want a quick place to search for stuff, it's an online library of publications, white papers and things, and they have a whole index of stuff on articulation and transfer. So you may be able to find some interesting nuggets in there. Again, a lot of them, these are just some. There are other places. There are a lot of other policy shops surrounding community college or surrounding transfer where you can find some stuff as far as numbers and justifying stuff. And finally, national stuff. Big, large-scale transfer initiatives, so big, large-scale programs that you make a lot. And again, these are things that you might have heard of. These big initiatives, of course, they require money, practices, and human capital. Somebody got to pay for it. Somebody got to figure out what you're going to do. Somebody got to execute. So most of these things are partnerships between major donors, nonprofits, and institutions. So you're going to see some of these. This is where a lot. And but the nice thing about knowing about them is once they finish their project, even if you're not part of it, they almost always release policy briefs, data, practices that have worked. It's nice that you can go back afterwards and see stuff that you can pull out. So some of these things, achieving the dream. They started out with Lumina, and they pulled in a bunch of other stuff. They got 200 colleges they're working with, especially related to underserved and low-income students. Aspen Institute, they talked about that a little bit earlier. A number of things with Aspen. Complete College America, which is Gates, and you're going to see these names over and over again. Gates, Lumina, IF. They're about to roll out this career and academic advising model called Purpose First that I saw on there. A lot of these projects are ongoing. They piloted 15 to finish. Advance, which is Jack Kent Cooke Foundation, they started a lot of this stuff, talking about getting transfers between community colleges and selected private institutions. So if you are partnering with privates, this is a good place to look if you're trying to come up with some of those. Federal grants, for now. There are a number of those, first in the world, FIPSI grants, you've heard these kind of things. The Pathways Project, which is, there's the American Association of Community Colleges. They're in the midst of this, working on this to implement a lot of it's focused around, some of it's focused around career pathways. The transfer is an aspect of that that can be useful. The Reverse Transfer Project, which is big with the Clearinghouse, that's getting students degrees after the retroactive degree certification. And things like the WICHE Interstate Passport, where they are looking at sort of proficiency-based gen ed block transfer and things along those lines. They recently expanded beyond the WICHE states. Again, this is just a few. There's a lot more of these things out there that you can find. But they're good things to know about, they're good things for you to look at. If you're looking for ideas of things that at least they've been tested and measured, whether they work for you or there's no guarantee it works on every campus, but at least can give you some ideas of where you're going. So, okay, so I've thrown all this stuff at you. So what are you doing? What do you do with all this stuff? These are just some suggestions that I have for how to take this stuff and how to do something with it. Again, you can look up a lot of the information that's there. We're going to be sharing information out as we go along as well. But for you individually, I always want to say this in front of the crowd: look to your left, look to your right. Hopefully we will. I love coming to these conferences. You learn so much from each other. You learn so much from people who do what you do. So borrow from each other, get to know each other, gather up your business cards, and don't just let them stack up on your desk or lay in a Rolodex somewhere. Keep up with people. Learn what people have started doing and follow up with them. It's nice when you start a project and you have somebody from the outside saying, "How's this going?" Positive affirmation is something we can all use right now. So keeping each other's spirits up is big. Network outside your area. Talk to people, whether it's on your campus, who do not work in transfer. Network with them. Let them know what you are doing, because they're not going to come. A lot of times, they're not going to come looking. If you can find a way to sit down, if you are not faculty, and you can find a way to sit down with faculty, sit down with faculty. If there are groups and organizations that you can get plugged in with on your campus and beyond your campus, professionally, go to other conferences if you can find a way to do it. Get outside of our own. We find our groups and we stay with them. But getting outside is the way to spread sort of these ideas about why transfer is important. Other groups, they learn about it, they like it. That's why NACAC is here, for instance. Know your policies. If you are going to do things and somebody says to you, "Well, institutional policy says we can't do that," ask them to show you the policy. Ask for it. If you know policy better than people you're talking to, you have a leg up. So do that. Know what you're up against. And watch the news. I know it's painful, but watch the news. Your local news, more often, I will say that. Know what your state is prioritizing. Know what your state is prioritizing. Right now, and a lot of times they're talking about, in Kentucky right now, they're talking a lot about advanced manufacturing and getting advanced manufacturing certificates, which a lot of times, one of these operator certificates are 6, 9, 12 credit hours tops. If you have 12 hours of electives in an AA, a student could get a license, a CDL license, an advanced manufacturing thing, a welding certificate. If you're saying, well, somebody wants to major in French literature, what good is that? Well, they could, I don't know. These kind of just ideas like that, ways that you can plug transfer in to the priorities that your state is talking about. Whatever your funding source might be, See what they prioritize. For your institution, again, follow the money. See where your state money is going. See where the grants are going. If you can find out where the grants are going, if you see it, you got an idea in your head, then find a partner. This is huge. If you have a partner, if you have institutions partnering with each other, you put yourself in a better position to be able to ask them, rather than having to replicate things at a bunch of different campuses, where if they can get, funding agencies like to get the most bang for their buck. So if you got somebody that you're working with, you are instantly more attractive when you're trying to get money. And along those lines, talk to your grants office, but make this, I cannot stress this enough. Do you know who your development officers are on your campus? Have you met them? Do you know who? You know what development officers love to do when they're trying to get money for your school, for your institution? You know what they love to do? They love to tell stories. They love to tell stories about students. And which students got the best stories on campus? Our students. They've had to get used to an institution once, twice, well, 3 times, never how many times. They've had to go through this process. That is something, that's a story that they can sell. So if you're trying to find some more, if you're trying to find some donors, talk to those folks. Because they love having new stuff to put in their hip pocket to go out and ask for. It's one of the biggest overlooked things that we can do as transfer professionals, at least in my opinion. So, thoughts? Any overarching things at this point? Yeah.
I just have a question.
Sure.
Dan Terrell Smith, University of Texas at Arlington. I currently work with transfer students on campus in terms of programming and activities. I think a lady right here brought up the question about different things on campus. I'm here to kind of just figure out what other schools are doing. I mean, currently we do a transfer appreciation day every semester, transfer talks, all different types of programs and initiatives. I want to know what other schools are doing that maybe I can bring back to my campus to get more transfer students involved. So.
Talk to this day. You got to go ahead too.
Yeah.
Yeah, true.
I want to reel back for a minute to something that was mentioned as a good practice, articulation agreements. Okay, we heard earlier from Josh Lyman that only, 8% of students who transferred in early bachelor's degrees relied on articulation agreements. And in my experience, they're enormously time-consuming to create, especially when it says we're going to come back and review this every year. With fiction. Is there any evidence that articulation agreements make a difference? Or is this one of those best practices that people think they ought to acknowledge because it's out there in the world as a best practice? Nobody said, is it worth it?
Go.
We've done some research on that in Michigan. I work at the state level, and we just completed a review of all, because not everybody submitted data, but we found 2,000 articulation agreements active in the 15-16 academic year. Only 30% of them had enrollments of 1 or more students. Only 15% of them had anybody graduating with a degree. Of 2,000 agreements, we have made the same conclusion that you have, that they're very duplicitous, they're very time-consuming. I used to do that for a university in Michigan, and I had 150 articulation agreements in my portfolio. For one person, that's too much. I mean, the curriculum is just too tedious to keep up with. Getting the faculty together is very important. I've talked with a couple people about this. I think that's key. Take a look at what your state is doing though. A lot of states are moving toward this 2+2 model where they're trying to create baseline articulation agreements that are more, not even articulation agreements, they're more just alignment of the degrees. In Europe, this has been really successful with the tuning model. If you're not familiar with that, you might look it up. But they've been doing this for years now where they get faculty together in disciplines and they literally agree on the different levels of certification or credentials in that field and what the competencies are for those so that they can take in credit for prior learning and put it out as competencies and so that they can build these agreements. I think what he said was only 8% of the students actually did the 2+2, meaning they got the associate degree and then got the baccalaureate degree. That's how I understood that statistic, and I've studied that report a lot, so that's kind of what I think he meant. But I think that it's a little misleading just to say that. I think if we had better alignment in the curriculum, you might
I would echo what you said. I think that the process of getting faculty together to align learning outcomes and curricula, the articulation agreement that comes out of it is almost secondary to making sure that the faculty at the 4-year schools understand what they're teaching at the 2-year school and how best to plug those credits in when the student does. But I think that's probably. Having gone through so many articulation agreements that haven't been reviewed since the 90s, I think that just having an articulation is kind of like, well, it's kind of like owning a bicycle.
So who's going to have the courage to take the burden off of hardworking staff members who spend hours and hours developing agreements that are useless? Who's going to say to them there's better use of your time?
We're doing that in Michigan, and it came from the bottom up. We don't have a governing board or higher education authority in Michigan. Our institutions got together and said, just what you said, we can't do this anymore. It's not benefiting our students. We haven't done anything yet, but you can stay tuned. I'm hoping to study it as the project goes forward as well.
I think it needs to come from the leadership. I really think they need to be involved in that. I think that's the only way it's going to change. Yeah.
Can I add to this?
Oh.
I had my hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, though, that part of the problem is that we don't introduce articulation to students early enough in the pipeline. So we wait until students are almost halfway done, and they might stumble across the fact that there was an articulation agreement in place. So I think part of this could be mitigated by introducing this during student orientation or something like that, so that students know earlier that there is an articulation agreement.
Certainly when advising, advising is a huge key to making sure a lot of that information gets passed along. Yes, sir.
I want to state that I have 2 questions. As one of the persons who will be drafting this report to the Gates Foundation that is underwriting the study, I can tell you with public commitment that we will submit this heretical notion that I just heard first articulation agreements aren't worth the paper or the electronic medium they're written on. If any of you can give us, us being the Gardner Institute, further evidence to that effect, that would be greatly appreciated and extremely necessary. Now, my 2 questions. One, Mike, just a sentence or 2. What's the role of your current employer in the transfer space and the National Institute for Study Transfer students? And secondly, you've done all this work. You looked at the scan, and what strikes you as what's missing?
What's missing? Well, the role of my current employer, the John Gardner Institute.
Well, other than that,
yeah.
But answer that first, and then go to what else is missing.
Well, we try.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear back here. It's very mumbly.
It is very mumbly because I've just been put on the spot by my boss.
But I couldn't hear the question either. We didn't hear the question.
No, she didn't hear the question. Asking me what the role of the Gardner Institute and the National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students are in this. We are talking about vis-a-vis the scale, vis-a-vis the process.
Well, in general, the transfer space.
In the transfer space, we have a process. Gardner Institute has a process called Foundations of Excellence Transfer Focus. Began with it was originally the first-year focus. It was focused on first-year experience. Now it's also expanded to transfer, where we work with institutions to do self-studies, to do homegrown self-studies on the state of transfer on an institution, on a campus, or a set of campuses, and work with that institution as they come up with an action plan, and then implement that action plan to improve transfer outcomes at their respective place. That's in a nutshell what it is that the Gardner Institute has been working on. In addition to, and as we mentioned earlier on, we have a process called Gateways to Completion, which looks at the gateway, which looks at a lot of gateway courses, and we're also working on a digital learning initiative to improve outcomes in online courses, in online course learning. The National Institute for the Study of Transfer Students has been, yes?
I have something to offer about NISTS.
Thank you.
On the website, you will see a data template. And this was developed over the past 16 months or so based on work done and conversations here at this conference where it became very clear that, and now I'm talking about the receiving institutions, didn't have a clue as to who their transfer students were, how they were defining transfer, and whether those students progressed at the institution and how that compared with the students who entered as freshmen. If you go on the NISTS website, you will see that data template, which is intended to be a tool for you to use. It is flexible. You put in your institution's own definitions and so forth. That tool also has some graphics that suggest ways that you can depict the data in a very easy format. And it's a starting point if you gather those data at your own institutions, and you can do it at the institutional level, at the college level, at the department level, at the program level. It's a tool to help you generate the conversation about what's going on with transfer students at your own institution. So that's one contribution that NISTS has made. It's not policy and the broader discussion, but it can be a very useful tool.
The thing that I see, as far as what's missing, the thing that I see missing, and this is one of the hardest things to collect on a large scale, are the students themselves, are the thoughts and the feelings of the students themselves, what their own experiences are. Now, obviously there are ways to get focus groups, there's ways to pull information. But I think that a lot of the stuff, when you are going to start doing this, when you've gathered your information, when you've thrown your spaghetti against the wall, even before you put stuff into play, I think it's important to run it past students. I think a lot of times there are unintended, we try to do a lot of good. And I think that there are often unintended consequences that we don't think of because we are removed from the actual experience of what's going to happen when we put these things in place. Make sure that you ask the students. That's the piece that I think is not, that's the piece that's not reflected in here yet, but that's not it. I want to,
questions that people have?
Stop, yeah.
I hope I don't make everybody gasp when I ask this, but answer the question, because I've got my own answer, but what really is the importance of an associate's degree in some of these cases? I understand that it's important for government officials and community colleges to track the completion of an associate's degree, but at some point a student without these articulation agreements, if we're saying that they're worthless, let's argue against that somewhat. Articulation agreements would be nice if you could actually do a 2+2 articulation agreement, but if you don't have that 2+2 articulation agreement, and you need a bachelor's degree to get a job in the area that you want, what is the value of that associate's degree? How can I convey that to a student? Because there's a motivational factor. Look, you completed something, great, okay, and I understand that part. And I work that in with my conversations with students all the time. But is there
is an economic benefit to it too. There is to having a degree, even if it is just an associate in arts degree. There is the lifetime economic benefit argument. That's the practical argument. The completion portion is one thing. In some cases, it's the gateway to scholarships. I think, and it is. And part of it is you did this, you earned it, you should have it. Yes, you absolutely can.
So I come from a state institution that does not participate in our articulation, statewide articulation. So there's no reason for a student to get an associate's degree who doesn't meet our gen. We don't care. So I have this conversation with transfer students all the time. Part of it is, what if they don't get that bachelor's degree? What if something happens and they leave our institution after a year? And so not having that associate's degree to fall back on to use is really important for students. And then you mentioned the economic, yeah, they make more money with when they have an associate's degree with some college after that too, so, yeah.
Have time for like one more question. Yeah.
So I'm hearing a lot of the term articulation agreements, and I'm the articulation coordinator for a large 4-year institution. And when I came into it, I learned that articulation agreements are these like really legal, ugly documents, and maybe sometimes have a large list of equivalencies. And I took that and I completely flipped it on its head, and I actually draw out 4-year plans of study to these institutions, from the community colleges to us. And I went across statewide to a community college and I presented them with what I do, and they said, we have 4 all-in peers of yours in our state, and none of them do this, and that is so much better. So I think the question of, are articulation agreements worth the paper they're written on? I think maybe what we used to think of articulation agreements might not be, but I think if you can clearly spell out a plan of study for a community college and their advisors to use.
What you do with an articulation agreement is the upshot of an articulation agreement, which are the 4-year plans. They can be useful, but when they're just there on themselves.
And I think also that advertising of them early on, we actually give them to our 2-year schools in our state to advertise with as well, so that students can see it is doable in 4 years.
I want to be respectful of all of your time. I know we've kind of come to the end here. Thank you for being here. Please join us tomorrow at our focus group, or again, please take the survey. There is the NISTS, the succession evaluation somewhere. Please fill that out, and I would love to hear your feedback. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.